Genuinely, what is in the water? What is happening? Why am I starting to feel as if 2026 might actually be my year? I'm a little bit worried, I'm a little bit apprehensive, but I am also extremely excited because just yesterday we got confirmation that there is a new Life is Strange game happening. Life is Strange, the universe, is returning in 2026, and guess what? That's not the only thing that is going to be returning in this game. I assume if you are any form of a Life is Strange fan, you probably saw this because it felt like it was posted everywhere, but we got a 30-second, 10-second trailer, to be completely honest, and it starts with Life is Strange returns in 2026. And when I say a teaser, I mean a teaser. Obviously, you kind of have Max Caulfield walking along, but then you have this new person, and you know who the Raven represents? You know the game where there was loads of Raven iconography? It was, of course, Before the Storm, which was Chloe Price's game. That was the game that was first made by Deck9, and a lot of people aren't happy about that, and we'll get into all of it. I kind of maybe want to just talk about some predictions and stuff. There is actually a full-on drop on a live stream happening on Tuesday the 20th. Obviously, all the official Life is Strange accounts put out separate the real from the rumor. Join us for the exclusive reveal of the next Life is Strange game, January the 20th, 10 a.m. PST, which is going to be 6 p.m. UK time. I am obviously going to be watching along with this. I'm going to have a video up the day after, kind of reacting to it, and also talking about everything that I guess we could maybe possibly expect from this reveal. But I mean, just to go back to this, obviously the first person that we see is Max. You can tell by the hair. You can kind of tell by the way that she walks. It's definitely grown up Max, but we don't really know when this game is going to be set. We obviously have heard separate the real from the rumor, but this is very clearly Max Caulfield, an older Max Caulfield than obviously we saw in the original game. We don't know if maybe she's going to be as old, potentially, as the double exposure Max Caulfield. I guess in a game that's all about time travel and parallel universes, etc., etc., you never really know how time is going to play out. But I love how you can just tell from the stance and the walk that this is Chloe. They got her gait so right, and I would expect them to, they've been diving in deep to this character since Before the Storm. They know how she works, they know her characteristics, and I'm so glad that it just feels like Chloe, even though we're kind of guessing at this point. Obviously, at the end of Double Exposure, we had the confirmation that Max Caulfield will return. Am I apprehensive though? Yes, absolutely. I mean, this is only 2 years after Double Exposure came out, and it's also not very long after they kind of had a bunch of feedback from fans. So Square Enix, they decided that they wanted to kind of open up channels of feedback. They had official feedback sessions happening down in London. I can't exactly off the top of my head remember when these were happening. I think they were maybe September, October time. I feel like they were around autumn. They could have been a little bit earlier than that. They could have honestly been a little bit later than that. Time is a weird soup, and honestly, I can't really remember dates and timings of all of that. The pandemic really did a number on me. What do you mean we're already 6 years post breakout of that pandemic? But that does concern me, because whilst I'm glad that they've listened to fans, and obviously they've seen the tidal wave of opinions that players have had, a lot of those were very, very strong emotions towards Deck9, saying Deck9 have ruined my favorite franchise. I don't know what the heck they were thinking. They've literally written themselves into a corner, and I can't see them ever getting out of it. And whilst I do feel like there is that potential of them writing themselves into a corner, it's kind of worrying me how they're gonna go about maybe doing some form of damage control and rewriting the history that they already put into double exposure. Now, there's a couple of ways that I actually do see this going. I've kind of already mentioned one. Is this gonna be a prequel to double exposure? Is this maybe gonna be Max and Chloe whilst they were road tripping, you know, whilst the strain of their relationship was happening? We apparently got told that in that period of time, you know, where they were traveling around, Chloe was a roadie for bands and Max was working as like a freelance photographer. We were told that Max was kind of caught up in the past, whereas Chloe kind of never ever wanted to talk about it, which is already, to me, a red flag. I personally think that's one of the biggest downfalls that Deck 9 had in double exposure, because what I got as a player from reading the text and the letters and kind of all the instances of interactions, obviously I chose the Bay ending, as in I chose to save Chloe in the end. It was accidental, but let's be real, fate brought me there for a reason. So I was still seeing Chloe on a lot of my social media throughout double exposure, and in my text messages and stuff, I had this whole prior history of that time of their lives. And to me, through all those text messages, it kind of felt like Max was really the one who was wanting to settle down. It felt like Chloe was pissed at her for constantly being like, oh, why do you have to rewind things? And I get that maybe the double exposure Max had broken up with Chloe like years prior, but I don't think it was meant to feel that way, because I think their last texts were like in 2023 maybe, so it hadn't even been that long. But double exposure Max had kind of said to herself, she'd restricted herself, she had drawn that boundary of not using her powers, and double exposure, she was kind of a bit like, oh, I really don't want to use my powers, even though I know it could potentially prevent this thing from happening to my friend. And maybe the reason she said that she was going to stay away from those powers was because she maybe perhaps was still rewinding when she was with Chloe. But the thing is, Max was the one to me who wanted to settle down. She was like, what if we just stay here? What if we just stay here forever and we like live a life together? That to me isn't someone who is trapped in the past. Whereas Chloe never ever wanted to talk about things, but she was consistently the one who was like, oh, what? Are you just gonna rewind and rewind and rewind time until I say yes to you, until I agree? Like, it felt to me like Chloe was kind of salty. Maybe I just read it incorrectly, but that to me felt like Chloe was the one who was kind of living in the past. So I do think those years would be interesting to play out. However, we obviously got at the end of the game, Max Caulfield will return. We had Safi. By the way, I am gonna drop double exposure spoilers right now, so if you maybe don't want to hear them, I would maybe click off this video about now. But with Safi, she was kind of looking like she was gonna build this whole like X-Men evil school for teenagers who have nosebleeds and who have supernatural powers. So is it going to be after double exposure? Is this gonna become like a buddy cop scenario in this game where Chloe and Max are like working together? Max is like, oh well, one of the only people that I actually can trust to talk about like my powers and like who knows pretty much everything that's gone on aside from this stuff that has happened in this university is Chloe Price. So should we like try and meet back up and team back up to try and take down Safi? Which to me, I'm kind of hoping that isn't the case. I'm kind of hoping that that isn't the story, just because I feel like that's getting a little bit too grand. I feel like that's getting a bit too superhero movie, a bit too overplayed. I actually said at the end of my like double exposure let's play and series that I did, people were complaining that this was about to become like the MCU of the Life is Strange universe. And I jokingly said like, I wouldn't mind that. Like, give me more Life is Strange content, which is true. Like, I would like the games and I would like the content and I would like Life is Strange as a franchise to continue, as long as I'm like kind of somewhat enjoying the games. And I did enjoy double exposure. Did it go downhill very, very quickly in episodes 4 and episodes 5? Yes. But up until the end of episode 3, I was really enjoying it. I was enjoying being back with Max, kind of exploring her new formed powers and kind of the clash of like, should I do this? Should I not do this? I like the grown-up version of her. I thought it was very, very interesting. I just think they kind of dropped the ball on the last 2 episodes and the story felt very rushed. And I don't want it to become an MCU of Life is Strange in the sense that, you know, it's this massive like super villain versus superhero, because to me Life is Strange has never been about that. Yes, there are supernatural powers at play, but it's always been about like real normal life with like a hint of the supernatural and a hint of the powers. Whereas if they make it into like a full-blown like super villain versus superhero, the superhero being Max Caulfield and her sidekick being Chloe Price, that to me just isn't compelling storytelling whatsoever. I don't want it to be like an action game. I want it to be what it is at its core, and that is real life, you know, this like indie environment, taking photos, graffitiing, you know, playing with the art, living out your life whilst also having these choices through the supernatural. Also, I guess if it is after double exposure, then what does that mean for Amanda? And this is kind of what I mean by have Deck 9 written themselves into a corner, in the sense that obviously they ended Max and Chloe, and I do think there's always that possibility that they could reunite and they could sort things out potentially. But are people just gonna think that is now like super fan servicey? Is that gonna be done in the right way? Is that gonna feel as if it's actually part of their story and authentic to these characters who are now in their 30s? Or is it just gonna feel shoehorned in because Deck 9 have been like, oh, well, the fans didn't like this, so let's just actually give them this version that they like. Also, how does that come into play with the people who chose the Bay timeline? As in those people who didn't sacrifice the town and Chloe is actually dead. Like, are we just rewriting choices that were made here now? It feels weird. It feels like, how are they going to approach this from like either perspective? We had the romance with Amanda. Something that I did actually notice, I went back and watched a video about like the letters and kind of the correspondence between Max and Chloe, and in her like breakup letter, Chloe did say, I hope you find someone who's worth not rewinding for. And I thought that was really interesting because she's always felt like Max has used her rewind powers to kind of manipulate and take advantage of, and you can clearly see that from like the, are you just going to rewind time until I say yes? Even though I personally don't think the Max who was in that environment would have done that. I think Chloe was just being ridiculously harsh there to Max. That did kind of happen in Double Exposure, and I mentioned this in my end wrap up when I had done that series, was in the alternative universe, you know, in the dead universe, Amanda was like, your friend has died, I want to look after you, like, I don't want there to be any like romance between us, I don't want to start that really in when I know that you are in your feelings, like, I just want to be a good friend to you. And then we actually kissed her in that timeline. It's Life is Strange. You kind of want to be gay, do crimes, you know? That's kind of the whole point. But then when she said it, I was like, oh yeah, that was actually really shitty of me to do that to you. And that's kind of a play on the, I hope you don't use your rewind powers. Like, I hope you find someone that you don't have to manipulate using your powers. So that could definitely come into play to maybe just putting the Amanda romance to bed, even though I really enjoy Amanda as a character, but they were very short, you know, they were very early on in their relationship. I definitely think they could have just broken up or whatever. But then again, are you facing the same problem that you had with Chloe and getting rid of that romance now with the people who actually did really start to like Amanda? Even just with this teaser, these look like embers and the Polaroids kind of look like they're burning. We have the separate the real from the rumor. So are they just gonna undermine our choices with like which is rumor, which is real? I'm excited, but I am also rather worried, and I would love to hear all of your theories down below. I do think right now the most likely is that it's gonna be after Double Exposure, but then Asher's Phoenix, weren't they in like Arizona at one point in time? I think that's maybe maybe where a photograph had been taken. All I can say is I am definitely intrigued for Tuesday, and I will be making a video, of course. We're gonna be having more in-depth discussions. One thing I will say is I hope it goes back to being episodic. I really missed it being episodic. I think it kind of built up a community. I think we got to talk about like fan theories and stuff, and I really missed that in Double Exposure. So fingers crossed they go back to an episodic release. I appreciate you all so much for tuning in. I would love to hear all of your theories down in the comments below. I know that there has been a couple of leaks. I don't know if there's been like any valid information in those leaks about like what the story is going to be, what the timeline is going to be. If there has, please do not use those leaks in the comments down below, because I want to tune in on Tuesday when they actually reveal it, and I want to have fun with you lot making more videos like this where we talk about our theories. But thank you all so much for being here. Let me know how you're all feeling about this. Are you excited for the return of Chloe Price? That's also another question. Are we going to be playing as Chloe? Are we going to be playing as Max? Are we maybe going to do like a switch up and playing as both of them? Usually there's only like one protagonist in Life is Strange, but I'm kind of down for playing Chloe Price again. I think Deck 9 do that quite well, and I will speak to you all once that reveal has gone live.